Good morning. I'm Steve Weber. Welcome to the American Gumption Morning Show on Tuesday, January 19th. I took the day off yesterday. I went away for the weekend up to the Pocono Mountains with brother Ken and Trisha, and had a little 3-day weekend. So came back yesterday, and so no live show yesterday. But here we are back in the saddle, and we're going to do 4 live shows this week. So excited to get the week going. And this show has two segments at the beginning, 2 little smaller segments, and then we have our main guest. Our main guest is coming up at about 8:15. Angelia LaRue will be joining us, and I'm excited to get into her whole story and talk about what she's doing. Angie and I met several weeks ago, and then have gotten to know each other since then. And so we'll be sharing and telling her story, which is quite interesting. You'll want to definitely hear that whole thing. Alrighty. And then let me just tell you and then the mini segments, I'll just tease those 2 and tell you. Shaman Isabella, who's been a guest here on the show twice, is coming on, and she's going to do an 8 or 9 or 10-minute segment and talk about her Detox the Mind program that's coming up starting on Thursday. So a Detox the Mind segment or program by Shaman Isabella. So we're going to invite her on and let her, where I would normally do the monologue, she's going to come in and join us and tell us about that program. So you'll want to pay attention and see if that's something that you'll benefit from. If there's some toxicity in your mind that needs removing, then pay attention. All righty. And since it's Tuesday, we have Brandon Schaefer doing his regular simple motivation segment, and that'll come up after Shaman Isabella and right before our guest Angie LaRue coming up. Alrighty, so that's the lineup for today. Now, let me tell you what's happening the rest of the week. So Wednesday, tomorrow, we have a brand new segment that's going to be about a once a month segment, and it's the Fitness Misfit segment by Stacy Redfield. And Stacy's been a guest on the show a couple of times, and we loved her so much that we asked her to do a regular. And it's really basically a health, wellness, food, lifestyle, taking care of your physical body so that your mental and spiritual self can be at its best. So she is the Fitness Misfit. She's coming up tomorrow. And then Tammy Joy Lane will be joining us afterwards. And Tammy's also been a guest of the show before. So we're going to check in. She hasn't been here in almost 6 months. So we'll invite her back and have her update her life. Alrighty, on Thursday, Tamra Oviat will be joining us. Sacred Activations is her brand of connection to source energy, and that's going to be a great conversation. And then on Friday, our very own Spirituality Going Wild's Debbie G, the founder of Spirituality Going Wild, will give us an update and a vision 2021 of where Spirituality Going Wild is heading in this year. A lot of good things coming up. And so I said, hey, Debbie, you got to come in and join us. You haven't been here for a while. Let's update everybody. Rather than me explain it, let's hear it right from the founder's mouth. So that'll be on Friday. Alrighty, now let's go ahead and welcome our first guest of the day. We're going to have Shaman Isabella joining us. She has been here before. There we go. I think that's correct. And Shaman Isabella, welcome back to the show. It's been 3 or 4 weeks since you've been here.
I know. I feel like we're doing this pretty regularly now,
Yeah,
like the 3rd time in this year. So.
That's right. So let me just tell people briefly who you are. Isabella Lee Stoloff began her shaman path in 2006, and since that time, she has been assisting clients in creating a high vibrational life for themselves and for their families. As an empath, she understands what it means to be sensitive to the energy around her. Using a variety of ancient healing techniques, Shaman Isabella is able to help you let go of the past so that you can learn to trust your intuition and follow your path. And she has been a guest here on December 8th, show number 85, and then on December 22nd, show number 95. So today we're at show number 109. Welcome back, and tell us about what's this detox your mind thing all about that you've dreamed up. I love it.
Well, isn't it cool? I love the name. So first, I'm very, grateful that Spirit gives me this information that I get to then bring out to the world. I love the name Detox the Mind, right? Because it's January and we're normally detoxing our bodies, right? We're normally like, oh, I got to get on a weight loss program, or I need to do more green juices, or whatever it is for the body. And so actually, and I'm going to say it here for the first time, and it's like, okay, Spirit's making me say it. So I think it's a 3-part series, and I think it's going to be body, mind, and spirit. But I'm starting with the mind. So here we go. Detoxing the mind. What does that mean? Well, we are, most of us, and especially women, I don't think men have it as bad as women do, but we are constantly in our heads. And we're replaying the same stories over and over and over again, either from the past or for something that just happened or something we need to do, or we're thinking about all of them at the same time, right? We're thinking about all of these things at the same, and because our brains are wired that way. And I have lots of techniques that I've used for myself, for my clients, lots of different things. The Good Vibes cards, which we had on the show, we pulled a card. I have also started a TikTok because a friend of mine said, you just do TikTok. I'm like, that's for kids. It's crazy. But so I started doing these minute meditations and pulling a card on TikTok. All you have is a minute. You got to get it out there in a minute. And so that's been fun. But there is a Facebook group right now. I know you asked me for a banner, but there's a Facebook group, and I think you're in it, Steve, called Detox the Mind. Then there is an event within that group. So you can join the group. I go live daily. I have posts. I'm posting daily. It's a new thing for me to run this group. And in that, you'll see events, and you can click events. So there's also a Detox the Mind event. I am offering some scholarships, some people that can't afford $150. I really want to make this widespread. That's why I asked if I could come on the show and, talk about it here, because I really want this message to get out. And now we'll talk about why for the planet. I know I'm on a short thing here. So I'll go as quickly as I can. I believe that there is a consciousness on the planet, and there is a consciousness of positivity, and there is a consciousness of negativity. And so the negative mind right now, with everything I'm not even going to talk about it, going on, right? Everything that's going on is really weighing down on us, the pressure of it all. It doesn't matter where you stand on what issue or what, the pressure of it all is really coming down on us. And so this consciousness mind, as we work together with the group, within the group, and for the 5 days, it's starting January 21st. It goes for 5 days. It's 20 minutes, my time, PST time, 10 a.m. to 10:20 a.m. And for 20 minutes a day for 5 days, we're going to meditate. I'll give a healing. We do a talk and get this pressure lifted by detoxing our mind. So
it sounds like, it starts this Thursday, the 21st,
yeah.
And then it goes for 5 days. So through next Monday, the 25th. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and it'll be at 10 a.m. your time, Pacific time. So that'll be 1 o'clock on the East Coast. And
cool.
Does that sound right?
Yeah.
I think so.
10, 11, 12, 1. Yeah, 3 hours. Yeah, you got it. And it will be recorded, Steve. So if you miss it, or if you're working, or if you can't make it, then you're on the email list. And so I will send the recorded tape of that day out, when it's over. So
awesome. So the best way, let me throw this back up here. The best way is people just go to Facebook and punch in Detox the Mind, and they'll find that group. Correct? Well,
a lot of people aren't on Facebook. So can we throw up the email, which is my name, Shaman Isabella @gmail.com. All you have to shoot me an email.
And they can always they can reach you through the Orange County Healing Center too.
Yeah. And the event is on there as well. And I have, as you know, Steve shows are up there, podcasts, radio shows, blogs for the last 11 years. There is my email. for people, make it easy. It's in the chat now.
Okay, great.
And, Steve, thank you so much. I know you've got other guests coming on. I feel like I covered everything, yeah?
Yeah, I think so. Great. So just let me throw this banner up there one more time. The Detox the Mind starts on January 21st. That's Thursday, goes to the 25th, and basically either find it through Facebook, Detox the Mind, or just go to the orangecountyhealingcenter.com, or find Isabella's email in the notes that have been added there in the chat part.
Yeah, I'm super excited because I really feel planetarily it will help us lift.
Yeah.
Because the more minds that are clear and open and ready to receive positivity, the lighter the planet will be.
All righty. Well, thank you so much. I'm glad we were able to squeeze it in, and have a great day. And we'll see you on Thursday as you begin the Detox the Mind section.
Peace.
Okay, take care. All righty. Well, there it is. So Detox the Mind, Shaman Isabella's Facebook group, or go to the orangecountyhealingcenter.com to find out more information about that. So we're always, Shaman Isabella is a friend of the show, so we're happy to help out and, share that information with you. All righty. Well, we're just going to keep this program rolling right along. As if Shaman Isabella wasn't enough of a high energy person, we might have to ramp it up just a little bit for our next guest. If it's Tuesday, it must mean that it's Brandon Schaefer and his simple motivation. And let's see if I got there. There it is. Brandon Schaefer.
Steve Weber. How are you, man? You are bringing it today. I love it.
Hey, I don't have a chance to even say a word. I'm just bringing guests in and saying, okay, tee it up for Brandon. Shaman Isabella, do your thing. And anyway, so great. We missed you last week.
I miss you. I think the feeling is symbiotic, they call it. So yeah, I definitely miss coming on.
Well, good. Well, we're glad you're here this week. What are you thinking of sharing with us today, Brandon? What do you got for us?
Steve, I'm just going to share a quick experience that I had yesterday, right? So I never drive my car, and it's in the driveway 90% of the time. If I drove 1,000 miles in the past 12 months, that would be a lot. I realized I'd take the car out yesterday. I realized there's a huge dent in the back of the car. I'm like, what the heck happened? Now, this is how it parlays into what I want to talk about today. How I react, how my mindset is, how charged up I am in terms of staying positive, in terms of taking the actual initiative over the past months to know that no matter what happens, when it happens, with whoever it happens, with wherever it happens, that it's going to be okay. I do not need to act irrationally. And I know sometimes these little things, these little hiccups occur in our life. And they mess us up, right? So we're having a great day and this little hiccup occurs. And for me, it was having that huge dent in the back of my car, right? That's a little hiccup. Now I can let that thing sidetrack me for the rest of the day and go home and treat my family badly and go home and treat the person at the Acme badly. Or I can just say, this is life. This is life. It's okay. We're going to get beyond this, right? Yeah, it stinks. Yeah, it's okay to feel that emotion, to let that emotion digest in. Yeah, I don't want this to happen. I don't want to have to go through the insurance. I don't want to have to go and pay my deductible to go do this. But I'm not going to let this one situation ruin the rest of my day, the rest of my week, the rest of my month, the rest of my year, right? It's just a passing. It's a season, man. And Steve, it is so important. This is why it's so important that people join and watch your show on a daily basis, right? Because it charges your battery. If you're not charging your battery, when something goes wrong, you're going to be on empty. So take the time, take the initiative, all the work that I had to do yesterday to make it through that situation of being upset. The reason why I was able to overcome that successfully is because my battery was full, because I'm actively participating in bettering my life on a daily basis, on going through activities that are filling my bucket. So when something goes wrong, I have the ability to overcome them. So that's what I have for you today, Steve. And I know this kind of aligns perfectly. Every time we talk, what I share is actually like in perfect alignment with what you're going over for that day. It's freaking amazing, man.
Well, there are no coincidences, and we are all connected, and the energy that we put out there ends up dictating what we end up getting back. And so if you, we don't like when an accident, when a dent occurs in the car, but do we want to freak out and make it compound it worse by, like blowing a gasket and fuse, I don't want to do it. So very good. I'm proud of you, brother. I'm proud of you for hanging in there yesterday. And I love what you said, where you went, like, I had to kind of work hard to like not go down that rabbit hole of craziness. So good job.
Definitely, Steve. Definitely. Thank you so much for having me on, man. Great show.
Right,
great show.
We'll see you next week.
Yeah, for sure. I'll talk to you. Bye.
Okay. So there's Brandon Schaefer, simple motivation. He has a dent in his car and he doesn't overreact and freak out. If you need help with your business, simplebusinesshelp.com is Brandon's business. And what Brandon and his team do is, if you have technology, he helps you smooth out the wrinkles of it to where one piece of technology talks with another piece of technology. So he's got a bunch of geeks in the back room who know how to make things work. And Brandon's the front man who knows how to communicate with the people and bring in the business and make sure that things are happening in a good way. So anyway, if you have problems with technology, reach out to Brandon, or just go to simplebusinesshelp.com and learn more about what he does. All righty, that is that. So let's see here. We'll do a quick change of the banners here. There we go. And we are ready to bring our main guest on today. And let's see, I'm there is there we go. I think I figured out this technology stuff. Reverend Angie LaRue, welcome to the American Gumption Show. Thank you for joining us. We've got a lot of stuff happening here this morning.
Yes, you're off to a roaring, what are we on, Monday, Tuesday?
Tuesday, but I took off yesterday, so it feels like my Monday. So it's like, man, I just jumped right into the, the frying pan with it, but I love it. So, well, good. Well, welcome here. First-time guest, Angie LaRue, Reverend Angie LaRue, Crystologist.com. She's joining us for the first time now. Angie and I met on Christmas Day. She was the guest of our Spirituality Gone Wild show that we did, 12-hour marathon. And Kathy Mason invited Angie on, and they had this conversation. And I was in this place where I was hosting the entire day, and so I ended up taking a little bit of a break when Kathy came on and you started, and I just sort of like kind of cleared my mind out, and then came back in and saw what you were doing and was fascinated by the work that you were doing. So I'm so grateful that you came and joined us today. So welcome.
Oh, it's a joy to be here. And thank you to Isabella and Brandon for opening your morning show. It was lovely.
Yeah, good. So here's the way this works is we have two things that happen when we have a first-time guest. The very first time they arrive is I read a little bio on and tell people who they are. And then I have a song, which coincidentally is called the First-Time Guest Welcoming Song. So if you come back in the future, we'll never be able to play this song again because it's only for the first time that you appear. So would it be okay if I read your bio and then, played the song to welcome you?
Absolutely. It feels like a birthday.
All righty. Very good. Well, good. The print's just a little small. I'm going to put on my reading glasses. So Reverend Angelia LaRue is a master Crystologist, healer, ordained reverend, medical intuitive, medical innovator, psychic, teacher, Reiki master, and manufacturer of orgone energy generators. My goodness. And she is also the bearer of the Antonian stone, a gift from the
Palladians.
Palladians. Thank you very much. So in 2018, Angie founded the Inner Passage Mystery School, which is located in Boulder, Colorado. So how did this all happen? I mean, there's a bit of a story and we're going to get into it, but here's the very short version of it. So we'll just tell people about that and then we'll let you get into the details after the song. So on December 9th, 2011 at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, Angie had a radical, spontaneous awakening of consciousness while going about an ordinary Hawaiian day as a professional artist and housewife. Within 3 months, her life in Hawaii abruptly ended, and she was thrust out onto the road to learn with spirit as her teacher with only 2 suitcases. So you basically packed up and you left your life in like a blink of an eye, more or less. She was reeling from the full explosion of psychic abilities and the sudden awareness of subtle energy. I love that subtle energy thing. We're going to talk about that. Full-blown and empathic skills with heavy cording to many others and the ability to see multidimensionally, which has turned her life into utter chaos, dissolving her previous life and 20-year marriage in a rapid domino effect. She would spend the next 3 years living out of a suitcase, navigating by the quiet whisper of spirit as she unlearned and remembered. I love that. Unlearning and remembering. Very, very important. It was a time of epic heights of bliss and depths of devastating suffering as the egoic structure was humbled and spirit retrained the body and mind. 5 years from the awakening day, she landed the whole experience on the tarmac of the 3D and began service through love to others. Her service now includes many offerings, energy blueprints, and ways to help people evolve their consciousness. She helps people increase their love quota and move from 3D awareness to 5D awareness. I love the 5D awareness that we're all moving towards. Angie is a healer of the body, mind, and spirit. She also manufactures tools and items to assist those on the path to higher levels of consciousness. So that's a lot there. And we're going to unpack that, and we're going to talk about a lot of that in detail. But let's play the song, and then the rest of the show will be ours to just sort of have a conversation. How's that sound?
Perfect.
All righty, here we go with the first-time guest welcoming theme song. Have you ever had a marching band welcome you to a show, Reverend Angie LaRue?
That was so adorable.
When you were out traveling around, learning from spirit and your adventures with your suitcases, did you see any marching bands when you were that you remember?
No, there was no moment like that. This was beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Well, welcome to the show. After all of that, like kind of excitement of the other guests and people coming, let's just take a deep breath and relax, and let's just go into your story and share it, because it's really it's a beautiful story. But it's also one of these stories that's, like on the surface, it's kind of unbelievable. I mean, it's not what we're taught to believe happens in life. And so I've got a bunch of questions, but let me just sort of open it up to you for a minute and just say what's on your mind at this moment as we begin, because I would like to kind of unpack the whole story of how it happened. But what are you feeling at this particular moment as we begin our conversation?
As you read the bio, I was having flashbacks to moments of that, which was in 2011, the end of 2011, the beginning of 2012. And it's just kind of shocking. I survived it all. I made it through it. And that was really coming up a lot in my mind, was actually made it out the other side of that. And there was many years during it when I didn't think that would happen.
I'm going to jump ahead to a quote that you have where you say, by the time you figure out the game, it's too late. You're already a player. I know what that means to me, but tell people what that means. Let me read it one more time. By the time you figure out the game, it's too late. You're already a player. I mean, that really describes what happened to you.
Yeah. Yeah. When you discover what you are inside and that blooms, there's no putting it back in the bottle again. You are what you are, and it's too late. You're already in the game. You were born into a human body, and you've just discovered what it's all about. And you can't unknow that. Once you know, you can't unknow it.
Perfect. Well, so I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Do you hear it too, or a little bit of echoing, or maybe background noise? I don't know.
Yes, there's actually somebody in the other room on an interview as well, so that might be what it is.
Oh, okay, very good. All right. So, as I read through your full bio that is on your website, it occurs to me that even though you had this spontaneous awakening on September 1st,
December 9th,
2011,
at 2 o'clock.
At 2 o'clock, we'll get to that. But there were a couple things that happened. First of all, you felt like your artwork, you were an artist, professional artist, doing these commissioned pieces for people, working out of your studio in Hawaii. And there were people who were, you realized that your artwork was actually like awakening. You had, like, in retrospect, your artwork was kind of channeling what was to come in your life. And then we could go all the way back to childhood and the fact that, who you were named after, and your parents in terms of their, religious connections and the environment that you were arranged in. I mean, there was a lot of like, pressure in terms of like who young Angelia was supposed to be, or, should have been. So anyway, take it from there in terms of like, what would you like to share about the early days, and maybe tell the childhood story, because I just think that it's just too foundational in terms of like sets up who we are supposed to be. And too many people get stuck being that person and not like moving on from, that early exposure to what could be.
So my full name is Angela Christine LaRue. So Angela is a female version of an angel. Christine means of Christ, and LaRue is like a little street, French. It's a French word for a little street, a LaRue. And so my name kind of translated as Angel of Christ of the Road, which was a ridiculous name to try to live into. I thought it was as misnamed as could possibly be. I was actually quite rebellious and incalcitrant, and I had a lot of issues growing up, a lot. I didn't think that could ever be. And then on top of it, I was a PK. I was a preacher's kid. My father was an ordained minister, and later in my life, my mother became a lay preacher. And my brother is a Zen Buddhist monk, or probably priest by now. And I didn't see how I was going to fit into that family or anything about that whatsoever. So it was quite the shock of my life when I experienced the spontaneous awakening of consciousness.
So really, you kind of had that foundational like teaching of like who young Angie was, and we carry those things with us, and then you made sort of a conscious decision to not live that life, or you wanted to discover your own identity, and so you're off in Hawaii, being this artist, and talk a little bit about the what you saw in retrospect as far as the way your art had evolved the several years prior to December 9th.
I had started off as a hyper realist. If there was a million hairs on a bobcat, I was going to sketch a million hairs on a bobcat. I was a hyper realist. And that, as I evolved and as I grew and as I became less calcitrant, less hard, I began to move into Impressionism. And Impressionism moved into Abstractionism, which moved into contemporary abstract. So I started learning to say more with less. But that took 20 years, 25 years to learn to say more with less. And, I remember after the awakening looking at my art, and for the last 10 years, which unfortunately I'm not in my office and so I can't show you my art, but the last 10 years before awakening, as an abstractionist artist, I was painting the awakening of consciousness, and I was painting, the greater realities that we live in. And I had no idea that's what I was painting. It was just flowing through me. And I remember a couple who had bought a painting of mine in a gallery there in Hawaii contacted me and basically told me that painting had something about it, the energy that it was putting out. They had lived in a very haunted house, and it had solved the problem in the house, and it had brought them forward in consciousness a lot. They were beginning to experience the awakening of spirit. And there was a few different stories like that where people said, I bought this for my living room and I ended up putting it in my meditation room because it moved me into a different state. And I literally had no idea what they were talking about, these different states or higher consciousness. I had no idea what they were talking about. So it's quite remarkable looking back that stuff was leaking out of me. I had no idea.
So there was this energy inside of you that was sort of like building up, and we called it the what did you call it? The spontaneous awakening of consciousness.
Yeah.
A radical spontaneous awakening of consciousness. So let's go ahead and jump right to December 9th, 2011. A couple minutes before 2:00. What are you doing? And then what happens at 2:00 that day?
So I'm on the phone with a man in another country who's commissioning a piece of art. He has an estate in Africa, and he wants a painting to hang of that estate in his castle in Scotland, right? And so we're kind of, setting up the details of how I'm going to get to Africa to see the estate and blah, blah, blah. And it's all happening around his 50th birthday. And there's a lot of details to work out. And it's a huge flight. It's like 3 days travel or something from Hawaii. It was quite a mess. Yeah. And at some point in the conversation, because we're also kind of trying to get to know each other, and I'm not sure at all about going to a foreign country and meeting a stranger, and if I don't know something about him. And at some point, I had asked him what his favorite constellation was, and it took him a little while, and then he said Orion. And when he said Orion, something very strange happened to me, and it was a charge that ripped through my body. And I decided to go into the kitchen to get a drink of water. I thought, maybe I was just getting dehydrated. So I went to get a drink of water. And when I turned around, this mist, kind of a silvery gray mist, obelisk kind of shape, formed in the middle of my kitchen. I couldn't imagine how that got there. And the next thing I knew, I was falling into it. And I was falling into a place, it was almost like, the door jamb between two rooms, the kitchen's on this side and the living room's on this side. And this space in between is no place. It's not kitchen, it's not living room, right? And that's what I fell into. I fell into this like no space. And there was no top, no bottom. There was nothing there. It was faintly illuminated, but the illumination seemed to be coming from me. And I'm still on the phone. And I'm yelling.
Right, because you were actually on the phone, and when you decided you needed to get a drink of water, you didn't like say, "Excuse me, I'm going to go get a drink of water," and put the phone down. You just picked up the phone, and like you're walking into the kitchen, and you're opening, getting some water, pouring it into your glass, drinking the water, and then this has all happened. But you're talking to him at this whole time. Is that
Right. So that got really messy really quickly. And I'm yelling, I'm falling, help, I'm falling. And suddenly I kind of popped back out of that null space that I was falling into. And I was back in my body, which is sliding down, the kitchen cabinets, and water was sloshing all over me. And I was like, I gotta go. And I hung up, and I made it into the living room, and I laid on the floor. I think I must have sensed that I needed grounded, but I was on a second-story building on a mountainside. And so I laid down, and that's when the Kundalini flowed, which I didn't understand. I thought lightning came up through the ground, entered my feet, and shot up my body, up my spine, and out my head. It would be a year or more before I learned it was the Kundalini. I thought lightning came out of the ground, and I couldn't, I was actually looking for burn holes in the carpet. I had no idea. I was so clueless.
So for people who don't know, a Kundalini is sort of a mystic experience or a chemical reaction in the brain that occurs where, like people take different psychotic drugs to reach that type of thing, but this is a natural forming thing. Explain a little better what that would be, because maybe I'm not even sure 100%.
Well, how I kind of visualize it now, because that experience reoccurred a number of times in different ways, is we expand. Our field expands really rapidly, and nature hates a void. And so energy rushes back in to fill that void. And the body experiences that. And in my case, I experienced it like lightning. Now, the Kundalini energy doesn't flow like that for everybody. It can be like a snake weaving up the spine. It can be like little ants. It can be a lot of ways. It's usually not lightning, so I don't want anybody to get scared. That's very rare, as is a radical spontaneous awakening. So I don't want anybody to be concerned that what happened to me is going to happen to them. It really is rare. I've met a few other people who have gotten kind of the cosmic 2x4 awakening, but it's rare. It's a rare thing. So I don't want anybody to be worried about this.
Right. So you did what any normal person would do. You went to doctors and you said, "Hey, what's wrong with this, doc?" And this is basically you're looking, from a Western medicine perspective, they're trying to analyze what is happening to Angie. Why did this occur? And there's no real answer, is there?
No, I ran it. I did everything. I did IQ test, psychological test, had MRIs done, absolutely everything. I thought the most logical explanation was I'd probably had a stroke of some sort, right? That was the most logical explanation. Yeah, but all those tests came back. I was utterly psychologically sound. I was very intelligent. There was nothing wrong with my body. And so my husband and I began trying to figure out, well, what did happen? What is left? And just by punching random words that were happening to me into search engines, we landed on the spiritual awakening, and it checked off every single mark of what was happening to me. And so one day, my husband came home and he took his wedding ring off and he laid it on the dining room table. And he said, what happened to you is what the saints and the sages and the mystics talk about. This part of our life is over. You need to go out there and find out what this is about for the rest of us 9-to-5 smucks. And that was the end of my marriage and the beginning of a whole new life.
Was I can feel the emotion of your saying that. was it like letting you go to be free to do what you needed to do, or was it like him rejecting that it was just too crazy for him, or a combination of both?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of both. He was a wide network engineer. He was, contracted with the Joint Intelligence Agency. And, he had a very specific life that he had to lead that fell within a very stringent norm. And, at that time, if I thought about him, I could see where he was. And I could see the building he was in, and I could see, his coworkers and where their computers were. I could see the whole layout of the building. And that building is one of the most secure buildings on the planet. It's 4-foot lead walls, no windows, right?
Right.
So I was doing, at that point, we didn't understand remote viewing and bilocation. We didn't understand all that, but I was doing it, right? He went windsurfing and came home one day, and I was like, who's the woman with the foreign accent in the yellow bikini with polka dots? And his mouth dropped open, and he was like, I'll never talk to her again. And that was the other side of the island, and I was at home, right?
Yeah.
So, I think it was a combination of everything. It was just too much. He was atheist. But with what happened with me, he turned into agnostic. He was like, oh, well, there's something out there, all right.
Right.
So, I think it was just too much. And then, there was a part of him that also recognized that my life had just taken a radical left turn. And wherever I was heading, I wouldn't be able to do that in the situation I was in.
Yeah. Yeah. Somewhere too, I read, and again, this story has kind of two components. One is like kind of what happens in any particular moment. And then there's like the part where you like zoom out and you can, see like what had been happening at that time, but not until like years later where you're able to look back at it. And so anyway, it's quite fascinating in terms of, that like things are happening that you don't understand in one moment, but then like years later, or at least with some perspective of time later, you're able to look back and kind of understand. And so you went through the next 4 years, mostly like in a discovery mode and learning mode, but not in necessarily an understanding mode. You just kept taking new things in, and yet you didn't understand what they meant at the time. Is that safe? Like a nice way to describe it, or a appropriate way to describe it?
Yeah, I was off on an adventure where I didn't know where the destination was. I didn't know if there was a destination. And the only guidance I had inside me was this very quiet voice that I had to get very still and listen for. But because my life had just crashed apart and I was essentially in harm's way, right? I had no choice but to listen to that little voice. The only way all of that could have landed in a good way is by listening to that little tiny voice. And, I was like Humpty Dumpty. I'd fallen off the wall and I had broken apart. And the only way to put me back together in a good way was to listen to that little voice. And it was edgy, right? And I'm on and off airplanes and I'm being sent, all over the world and taught through other people. And at the same time, I'm becoming, this healer and healing people all over the world. And I didn't know where I was heading, and I didn't know what it was all going to add up to. And it was, and still is, the deepest walk of faith of my life. My human brain doesn't get to make I don't let it make too many decisions anymore.
Yeah. So you're out on this adventure, and well, how long was it from when December 9th to when you got on an airplane with the suitcases? I mean, how much time went by? Just a couple months, I think.
Yeah, just a couple months. My husband and I, we'd been married almost 20 years. That marriage ended just a couple months shy of our 20th anniversary. That was, I'm going to cry. When you think you're going to be married to somebody for your whole life and something like this happens, and it just shakes it apart. It wasn't easy to let go. It wasn't easy to let go for either one of us. Yeah, but it was just a couple months. It was very clear, once it happened that we'd already turned to each other in all the hard times and thought our way through it. And that's how we knew how to respond to the world. And this wasn't a thinking thing. That wasn't the way through this. It wasn't the way through the funnel and out the other side was through thinking. It was through listening, through silence, which is quite the opposite of thinking.
Thank you for sharing the thinking idea. And I'll just tell a little, I'll throw myself into this a little bit just to kind of my own experience. My awakening started in 2009. Nothing dramatic, very subtle in terms of like it was like, okay, something has to change. I can't go on living this way. That was really my awakening. So nothing dramatic in that regard, like what you're describing, but it was dramatic for me at the time. And it was like, okay, something has to change. And I had been, again, some of it you knew at the time, but a lot of it you kind of looked back and you understood. I had been a thinker and an overthinker, and I had actually been from an experience that happened in my early 20s. I doubled down on thinking and I stopped trusting my intuition because I perceived that my intuition let me down. And so I had a pretty good intuition that I essentially relegated to the back burner and said, okay, I'll let you simmer back there, but I'm not going to actually let you run the show. And so I would only allow my intuition to then activate my thinking brain and try to solve problems with it. So I was this thinker and overthinker. And numerous times people said, sometimes it seems like you're a little bit stuck in your head thinking about things. And so I had heard that so many times that I was like, well, maybe there's some validity to that. And so anyway, my awakening was essentially realizing that my spirit, my intuition was actually valid and could be listened to. And I had to go back to that experience when I stopped trusting my intuition. And I looked at it and I realized that my intuition was actually spot on at the time. I was just told that it was faulty. And so, so you had described many times where you said that you just had to stop trust, or you were learning. So that first couple of years, that first 3, 4, 5 years when you were out there, you were learning and doing all this thing on that journey that you didn't exactly know where you were headed towards. And you were, I guess, trying, like all of us, trying to get validation from external things. But then at some point you went, oh my gosh, I can only trust my inner self and spirit, my inner self and spirit. Was that a moment, or was that kind of something that crept up on you?
No, it was a moment.
Okay.
So I ended up quantumly entangled with that person I was on the phone with, right? Ended up totally quantumly entangled with them, to the extent that I could taste the food they were eating. They could taste the food I was eating. He was calling me with a list of things that I shouldn't eat because they bothered his stomach, right? And, when my lower 3 chakras started opening up, I got constipated for 21 days. I couldn't go. That was one of the reasons I ended up at a doctor's. And I kept taking X-Lax and stuff, and it didn't work on me, but it gave him horrible diarrhea, and he's on the other side of the world, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, quantumly entangled. It was a mess, utter mess. And so in the beginning, one of the first places I went was to see him and figure out, what is this all about, right? Somehow maybe we could unquantumly entangle each other, because he ended up in an accident where he was in a coma for 10 days. And I experienced that coma, and I was just wrecked, absolutely wrecked, crying all day long in absolute abject terror. So it was a mess. I had to go sort that out. Well, it was very short order to figure out, and it's got nothing to do with him. Whatever this is, he's as clueless as you are. And I got back on a plane. And when I got back on the plane, I was just like, Spirit, this has got to add up to something. It's too profound and it's too big. This means something. And whoever you are, you've got to help me through this. And I'll do whatever I have to do, but help me through this. And that was the first level of surrender. It was very light, though, compared to the levels of surrender that later happened. The ego had to, prove it was utterly incapable of guiding and directing this life before it would ultimately surrender, which is, part of why I got the cosmic 2x4 is I didn't listen as well as you did, Steve. I wasn't a good listener. I was very stubborn, so I got the cosmic 2x4.
Oh, well, all right. So interestingly, so the man that you were speaking to on the other side of the world, when this all happened, you said you became quantumly entangled, and I've done enough research in the quantum understanding of entanglement and understand how that is possible, but this is the first experience that or the first time I'm hearing like a specific story where these people are connected. So so the one question I had, very simple, was like, well, whatever happened with this man? Did you ever do the artwork? Of course, you weren't going to do the artwork, I don't think. But how long did the entanglement last, or is it still going on with him?
No, I eventually learned what it was and how to unsolve that, get rid of that. At the same time, I simultaneously was entangled with about 10 other people. And so the people that I was closest to emotionally and psychologically, some of them awakened spontaneously when I did. And a lot of them became aware of their intuition and their subtle senses when I awakened. So it was like a pulse went off of me and affected everybody else. And, I had these injuries. I had a bad back from an art display blowing down in Aspen, Colorado, 30 years before. I had a torn Achilles tendon. I tore in the Grand Canyon on a hike. I had a number of, bodily complaints. And one of them was I was allergic to chemicals, and I would get all these terrible blisters on my hands. And when I awakened, all of that stuff went to those 10 people, right? And I didn't have any of them anymore. And they slowly, one by one, would call me and they go, you know what? I woke up this morning with blisters all over the palms of my hands. And the first thing I said to myself was, this isn't mine. This is Angie's. How'd that happen, Angie? Like, I don't know. I'll get back with you. Some very strange things have been happening to me lately. And then another person calls me and they're like, that L5 disc that's hemorrhaged? Well, I have one this morning. And when I feel into it, I just keep getting your name. What's going on? And I had all these people with all these questions. I am now carrying your burden. Why is that? And for a year, all those people, all those friends, all those loved ones they carried all my burdens, right? And after about a year, when I started learning how to unquantumly entangle from everybody, all my stuff started coming back to me.
Oh, so you were, one of the things that you talk about is corded work, where people, or there's connections that people get with others. So energy strands, I've heard it described as, is that what you're describing, or is that something different?
Yeah, no, that's it's the same thing. I mean, basically we are all part of a weave, a tapestry. And what happens to one string in the tapestry affects the other strings nearby it. Those nearby strings being those that we love, that a lot of our thoughts and our emotions go to. So where attention goes, energy flows. And the charge on that energy that's flowing is fueled by emotion. So we're equally corded to the people that we detest, as we are to the people that we adore. Interesting. But it's the emotional, how much emotion is going determines how strong that connection is to the other person. So there was a lot to unpack for me to get sorted out, to get any sense of sovereignty back again. And I was one with anything I looked at. I'd look at a beautiful tree and I'm suddenly one with the tree. A beautiful bird would be singing. I would look at it and feel love for it, and I would be quantumly entangled with the bird. So it took a long time to get that sorted out and untangled and even learn why, because for a long time, to be quantumly entangled with everything that I loved, the beautiful flowers, the beautiful people, the beautiful sky, the beautiful spirit that moved through everything was exquisite. It was the mountaintop experience. I was in love with everything and everyone, every expression of the divine everywhere. But it turns out that's not always really safe. And I remember I was in Sweden and I walked by this elderly gentleman who was pushing a cart, and I suddenly crumpled to the floor. My hip gave out, right? And this woman ran over and she scooped me up, helped me back up again. And I asked her, "Who is that man?" And she said, "That's my dad." And I said, "Are his hips bad?" And she said, "Yes, he spent his whole career was riding a bicycle around Sweden, delivering newspapers. He did it for 20 years, and his hips and his knees are bad." And so when I walked through his field, I shared field with him, and I had not learned how to adjust for bad knees and bad hips and how to hold myself up. And so I fell down. And I remember passing a woman in a store on a cell phone, and my head got really hot. Like, I was really concerned I was having brain damage. It got really hot. And I remember going, "Is this mine?" And getting a no, it wasn't mine. So I looked around to see what it was, and it was a woman talking on a cell phone. And her brain is heating up really badly. And when I walked through her field, I was quantumly entangled with her, and it happened to me. So I had to learn why I shouldn't be quantumly entangled with everything, and why I needed to get some separation and pretend to be an individual, independent being. There's a lot of safety in that, but it is a pretense. Ultimately, we are all one thing. Like cells.
We're already coming to the end of the show, and we didn't even get into the whole story of who you are and what you're doing, and we haven't gotten into any of the really good parts. So I'm gonna, we could talk for another minute or a couple minutes, but I want to just basically let everybody know that they can go to crystalarays.com to learn more about you, and if they just add free gift, there's a free gift that you have where you offer some energy healing for them. But we haven't even gotten and touched what you're doing then. To reframe it, 2011, you have this radical awakening of consciousness, and then you go on about a 4 to 5 year journey where you're basically just like learning and learning and learning. And then the last 5 years, you've been, spirit tapped you on the shoulder or somehow said, "Okay, it's time that you begin building something solid that you can then teach people." And of course, you're in Boulder, Colorado now, where you have a studio and you've built some amazing things, which we don't even have, we haven't even touched on, and that's a whole separate conversation. So I would love to invite you to come back and talk about some of those things. My goodness, it's really, thank you for sharing passionately. I felt your emotion. When we met, I felt a connection to you. I'm listening, and I suddenly became like kind of mesmerized by who is this person, and I hadn't really heard you speak yet, but I could feel a certain energy, and so I felt very connected to you. And then of course, you came on again with Kathy that day on Christmas Day on the Spirituality Gone Wild, Jolly Gone Wild event. And so you were there sharing, your story, and I was just fascinated by it. So there was a connection. So I get that connection, and I'm learning to, pick up on that fine, how did you describe it? The subtle nature of energy. Because there's like you had this radical energy happen, but then there's a subtle energy that if we can tune into, that's where life becomes that, heaven on earth kind of thing. Is that the way you're seeing it? Yeah. Yeah. No, it's interesting. It's I'm very grateful we met and we've had a nice conversation, privately first and now here. I would like to continue it. So hopefully you'll be able to, we'll have you back in a few weeks and we can continue this in a way that makes sense. But we do have a minute, it doesn't have to end exactly at 11. So let's just take another minute and kind of wrap it up. And let me let you just sort of, leave it in a place where we could pick up next time.
So I think what I would really like to share with everyone is that there are universes inside of you. There is wonder, there's awe, there's great mystery. And it is probably the most fascinating journey of your life to discover what you really are. Know thyself. That was carved above the entry to the Oracle of Delphi. Know thyself. I think there is no greater adventure or understanding or solace in the universe than to truly know what you are. And yes, I would love to come back and continue telling the story of what I discovered was inside of me.
A friend of mine who does hypnotism and coaching also, but she says, imagine if the world outside of us, like the stars and the planets and the galaxies and the whole universe, what if like internally it's just as big? And this is something she's just a few months ago, I first heard her say that, and I instantly went, oh my gosh, let me try to imagine that. And she's been, repeating that theme. And I think that's what you just talked about, that internally, we're just as big as we are externally.
When we travel out of body to go to other worlds, right? Other even universes for that matter, we toroid into ourself. We dive into ourself to go out. And it is all through the dive within. That is the great golden gateway to the rest of all that is.
Well, very good. We had a couple people, Bettina and Josie Smith, checking in just to say hello to us. So we appreciate you joining us, and I'm grateful, Angie, that you were able to join us. If you stick around, if you have a time, if you could stay for just a minute, maybe we can find a place on our calendar that we can schedule to bring you back, and we'll continue this conversation. But thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, everyone. Blessings to you.
All righty. Well, that was Angie LaRue, Reverend Angie LaRue. Grateful that she joined us this morning. You didn't even get through the entire, story of her awakening, but we covered the basics. We got the foundation done. She's doing some fascinating energy work, and that is really what we want to talk about, because that's the difference that we could make in your life. And I want to learn more about it. And I believe you guys want to learn more about it too. So we'll have her back very soon. Alrighty, I'm going to go ahead and just, wrap up by saying, let's see here, where are we at? Just let you know what's happening. Tomorrow, our fitness misfit Stacy Redfield joins us for her first of regular segments, and then Tammy Joy Lane will check in from the West Coast, from Seattle area, to let us know what's happening in her life with the Yes to Kindness campaign that she is running. Tamra Oviatt on Thursday, Sacred Activations, and then our own Debbie G with the Vision 2021 for Spirituality Gone Wild. That's how we'll round up the week and finish things off. So I will see everybody tomorrow. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.